Hey guys, bored now back with you, fluffing my lines already for another brand new television review. On this video, I'm gonna be reviewing the first episode of Amazon Prime's new original series. The series is called Upload, and the first episode is called Welcome to Upload. So this is a new sci-fi / comedy going on based on the first episode. It's from Greg Daniels, who's a big writer with shows like Parks and Recreation and also The US Office, so has quite a bit of pedigree when it comes to like really successful comedy series. And yeah, this is his new series. It's up on Amazon Prime now, all 10 episodes of the first season. And I think it's fair to say there's a fair bit of like the feel that those other shows of his have had. It certainly has a quirky, at times surreal type feel, but at the same time it's really kind of dabbing in like the mythology and the theories of the science fiction as well. So it's definitely a hybrid, but I did notice kind of the quirky factor and the lightness of touch, if you like, and certainly there's an implied like romance, which is going to be a big part of the storyline. So I think it'll be interesting to see as we move forward what the balance is, just how funny it is all the way through, or whether it's going to become a bit more straight as things progress. But yeah, it sort of certainly the romance setup certainly reminded me a bit of the classic film A Matter of Life and Death, and obviously there's quite familiar sci-fi ideas in here as well. Things like Total Recall, you can see similarities of, and then the sort of more quirky, maybe playful stuff feels a little bit like The Good Place. Yeah, which I know Michael Scarn was involved with. I don't know if Greg Daniels was, I can't remember, but certainly has a little bit of the feel of that. But so the basic setup is then you have this character of Nathan. Well, I should say first of all, the show is based in this like sort of alternative universe where you have these things called uploads, and there's this particular upload where if someone is about to die, they can sign a contract and they can make it so they are uploaded into like what essentially is meant to be like this version of heaven. And there's this particular like retreat which we see an advert for. That's like the opening like scene of this episode, that we see this kind of idyllic sort of advert really selling the pros of. I can't remember, it's something called a haven. Lakeview. That's it, Lakeview. I've just seen on my notes. That's the name of the place. So we see the advert, and it's meant to be like this idea of heaven and the afterlife. But what this upload allows you to do, it allows you to stay in this place, and if you sign this contract, it also means your loved ones can join you there later on, and there's certain perks like you do have contact from the outside world or people down on Earth, so you can have contact, and you also get assigned angels who essentially watch you and give you, if you need some help or if you want something, they can give it to you. And there's all these various like perks to do with food and different things, and like the scenery and just certain little perks to this kind of existence in this place. So we have this character of Nathan, who's, I think we're sort of set up to believe he's a little bit on the shallow side. He's a little bit sort of fleeting when it comes to like commitment and relationships. Like, we're certainly like given the impression he like jumps between like relationships and isn't really looking to settle down anytime soon, but he's kind of presented anyway as quite sort of shallow and superficial, although there is quite a nice moment he has with like a kid of like, I think someone he's even related to, or maybe like this, was it a daughter? I think it was, yeah, a daughter of like a friend. So that's kind of the one time pre-death where he's seen as a bit more of a human being, because he kind of plays with the kid and sort of that. But he's in this relationship with a woman called Ingrid, and I think she sees it more as a big thing than he does, but it still seems quite a superficial relationship, kind of from both. It's just then, certainly from his point of view, she seems quite clingy, and he isn't ready to settle down. He doesn't want to commit, and there's quite a telling scene early on where, because in this world they have talking cars and they can do various things and like drive themselves. And so he has the talking car, and one of like the good examples of like the comedy in this first episode is there's a scene where he gets like pulled over, and of course, rather than like the policewoman being physically there, she appears on the screen. And I guess I'm getting into spoilers now a little bit, although this is all pre him like going to the place, getting uploaded. But yeah, he has this he gets pulled over, and you got the police officer appearing on the screen, and she's basically giving him a stern warning and says, "I don't want to see you again." So I think she's going to let him off with a warning anyway, but then he starts flirting with her, and there's kind of a smile, so I think she certainly feels flattered. Whether he's going to get anywhere is another matter, but then his like talking car, like the automated system, comes in and says, do you want me to ring your girlfriend Ingrid and let her know you're gonna be late for family dinner? And that's when obviously the jig is up, and if there was any interest from the other side, obviously she says, "I'll see you around." And but it's a nice little twist on that old joke where like the flirting guy who's pursuing another woman suddenly gets, yes, certainly someone else puts their foot in their mouths by revealing that, yeah, he has a girlfriend indeed. So that's one a good example of one of the lighter comedic moments, but it's a smart little twist on the thing. But anyway, we get stuff with him and Ingrid, like at a family dinner, and she's the first one to meet his parents and all that, and his family, but he's not really committed to the relationship, doesn't see it as a long-term thing. And later on, there's an accident with his car where it's like out of control, and he ends up in a critical state. And then they go to the hospital, and this is the decision he has to make. Now Ingrid's there, and again you get a bit more playful sort of comedy, because she's kind of trying to talk him into like going for the package, basically, where he can be uploaded into the afterlife, and where she can join him years later when she eventually dies. And it's kind of this sort of comedic thing again, because he's worrying about commitment. So he's got two options in a way. It's that either he can go with that and all the perks, but obviously it's kind of a weird thing for him to take on board, and almost the fact that that's the irony of the joke, is the fact that he sees it as a commitment to this girl who he's not really that into. It's not that romantic to him, but at the same time, he still sees it in an odd sort of way as a commitment, even though potentially it's going to be like decades before she comes. But it's just this idea of being in the afterlife with her forever then kind of freaks him out. Or he can just take the regular route and sort of take his chances, but they're telling him then it's a really critical, and that it's maybe a long shot then he'll pull through. So that's kind of the dilemma, and I think because he's being pressured by Ingrid partly as well, he obviously goes with the upload option, and that's obviously the setup for the show. So, but where the other element comes in is that you have this other like main character called Nora, and she is like his operative, his kind of main one. It's his case or her case, and that's her job. Then she works in like the center, and she obviously works on like their personalities and their data, because they have this really detailed like personality, and like they have things like they've taken like the idea of avatars and applied that to their afterlife sort of selves. So she's involved with that, but she is also his like main point of contact, where if he needs anything, so she's the one who introduces him. Once he's like uploaded, she explains the whole setup. But we find out actually that they're sort of working shifts throughout the day as well. So there are other people. They call them angels. So there's other angels that appear to him and help him. But anyway, Nora's sort of the main one as far as Nathan is concerned. And that's where there's this sort of element of romance, because he likes her quite early on. He likes the way she's talking, and there's certainly an attraction from him. And I mean, at one point he finds out what she looks like. He actually gets to see her in like her human form, not just her voice. And so I think the idea is that there's going to be something from her as well, but we get to know a little bit about her. But that's the basic setup. That's where we're going to have like a sort of a romance, where he can find it's sort of another ironic sort of like touch, the fact that really during his life he couldn't commit to a woman, and he had mostly physical relationships. But now in death, it's an old sort of, it's a twist on an old sort of like idea, where the guy goes to heaven, and then as he's passing on to the afterlife, he actually meets a woman who there's a little more substance there. He falls in love with her, sort of thing. So that's the setup, and I think you can probably tell from what I'm saying, I enjoyed the episode a fair bit. It's obviously an interesting concept. I think a lot of the ideas you've seen before, but they do put some nice little twists on it. And I think just in terms of the humour, I think it's at times it was very funny. And I think that does help. I think that lightness of touch definitely works well in this first episode. I think just because sometimes, I mean, obviously, as I said, there were some funny jokes, so obviously the humour was working. But the other thing is, I think sometimes with this sort of story, it can be a bit heavy-handed, particularly at first, if or just a bit full on if there's not like lighter moments, or I think we're gonna have some more straight moments. I think there will be a balance. But I think the first episode certainly probably weighed a bit more in favour of like the humour and obviously the characters a little bit. But yeah, sometimes this sort of thing can be heavy going if you don't have some lighter moments. And also, I think this sort of thing has been done a lot of times. And again, I think this first episode anyway does put original touches on it. It's just then I think without those comedic moments and some of the other stuff, then maybe it would feel too familiar from other shows or films we've seen. So the comedy definitely helps in this first episode. And I think so far the characters are working quite well. I think the cast seem pretty strong. I mean, I sort of like Nora a fair amount. You don't see that much of her in the opening episode because you obviously spend a lot of time with Nathan throughout and then follow him into the upload. But from the bits you see of Nora, I think you can see that she's a very grounded sort of person. I think you do buy into why Nathan would be like drawn to her, even though it's only a voice in his head. And one of the things he says near the end of the episode where he actually sees her, because what happens is he starts freaking out basically, and this is where they go into like good sort of detail, because there's this like running sort of gag where people keep mentioning that his hair looks a bit funny, and he comments on, well, yeah, because it's just in the transfer, they just haven't been able to get my hair as it was like perfect. And that's, I think, again commenting on like his shallow sort of nature, and also a little comment on this idea of technology and just how it does like mold people, and this kind of idea of a concept of people rather than is it really the real thing. So it's kind of playing with that sort of thing, how no matter how lifelike these avatars are, they can never be the exact identical model. So anyway, he starts freaking out because he's of the hair thing. That's just like builds up, and finally, but also other stuff like the fact that they have all these like virtual like helpers who keep popping up everywhere, and that finally freaks him out, and he's in danger of like losing control, and he like wanders into an area which they're not supposed to go in. So Nora is called by someone else who works at the place, and she has to like visit him. So she like inserts herself into like his space. And I mention this bit because she obviously calms him down, and it's also sort of a good sort of expansion on the universe and the ideas. And it's an interesting scene because she kind of talks him down, says for a rough first day, that's understandable, but she also sells the place because she sort of says, well, yeah, there are flaws, it's imperfect because life is imperfect. So I think that's like an interesting idea compared to some other like stories where you have this sort of thing, because um yeah, she's kind of like presenting it to him as, this isn't perfect. I'm not going to pretend to you it is, even though that advert that we see at the start of the episode does kind of make it out to be. But it's imperfect because that's life, and that's the beauty of life. That's the experience of life. She really like sells it. And I think what's interesting about the scene is you sort of wonder, she's clearly partly just giving him a line to like keep him on track because he's here now, and they've obviously got like his business or what have you, and it's in everyone's interest to sort of keep him there. Probably his as well, because there's kind of no going back anyway now. So she kind of has to like keep him like calm, but at the same time, because we're set up to we're introduced to Nora, and she's obviously one of the main characters, and so far we're like given this impression that she's really like decent and down to earth. I think it's obviously meant to be quite a straight scene where she is being sincere, but yeah, he says like an interesting thing, which is to do with, I can just tell by your voice and your manner and stuff that then you are actually like a human being, not just another clog in a machine, or whatever he says. I can't remember the exact term, but so it's again the romantic side where he's actually for the first time actually. Yeah, it kind of cuts through the sinister, the fact that he actually, sees this woman as a genuine woman, as a human being. But she actually breaks protocol, because she makes this point of saying when she first talks to him, then, sorry, I can't tell you my real name. It's the rules. I could get into trouble. And actually, she really like reaches out to him, because to kind of keep him on side. I think she not only tells him her name, but she goes far. She gives her like information, and it becomes this nice little like bonding scene where she's like opening up to him in a way obviously the other operatives probably wouldn't. But it's a nicely played scene anyway. I did find it a little weird than she would, having said, a moment before, these are the rules, I can't tell you my name, then she actually goes that step and actually does all that stuff. But it works well in the scene, and we get like some small scenes of Nora at home with her family. Her father, as he's like single now because her mother died, a while back, and like the whole idea of this upload and people talking about it is a thing throughout the episode. Like when Nathan is at like the family dinner, they're just talking about this like it's a common thing. They're making jokes. Like one of the family members is like, yeah, it's just I'll just be like part of like a drive or something, or like I can't remember what he says. Just like whatever. But before I'm finally like go to heaven, that kind of thing. So they're talking about it. So there's some world building. There's as I said, different things showing you the technology and the various uploads and stuff, and it gets into the dating apps and stuff like that. So we kind of have, while like Nora's roommate or friend or whoever it is, who's again, a bit more flirty, a bit more out there, is really into like these dating apps. So as Nora's like having like a conversation with like a date, so it's got the technology where she wears a headset and has a conversation with like a date. At the same time, her friend's like just having sex with a guy she's like met on one of the like these dating apps. So she's more out there and more sleeps around and stuff. So Nora's still looking for the right guy, but again, stuff like that's quite familiar from like films, TVs. So I think that might be one thing I'll say is I think it does. It obviously hits you with all these examples, and yeah, it's sort of fine, but maybe they, as things move forward, maybe focus more on the characters and the stuff and the story, and yeah, some of this stuff is quite, it's been done before, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But I think it will be a test also of the characters if they're ultimately likable enough, because it's interesting. I think Nathan, as I said, is introduced as quite sort of shallow, and it's sort of funny because Ingrid is kind of the same. Like, I don't think you're meant to like sympathise with. I mean, at times it's like she's kind of sort of an airhead a little bit, so it sort of becomes like comic relief. Um, but there are some like really smart like moments of comedy because it's really sharp. Because one of the best sort of lines is that later on in the episode, where when he's in the uploaded place, Nathan like talks to Ingrid over like transmission sort of a thing, um, and there's basically like a gag to do with her saying like she loves him, and he's trying to get like a code off her because he needs a code for something or other to get something or other. And she clearly doesn't want to give him a code, but she like signs off by saying I love you, and he makes a point saying, well, we've never said that to each other before. Like, he's actually quite moved by it seems, but then she says, well, you know, now you're there, so you can't run away from me. I can't scare you away. So it's like this backhanded sort of thing, and it's actually like more of an insult. But again, I think stuff like that is really smart because you've got this sort of shallow sort of guy who like cruises about between girls and stuff, and I think in a way, although she's not like the greatest herself, and probably I think is worse than him, at the same time he is still like treating her quite bad, like on Earth. So in some ways it's kind of turnabout. It's this funny sort of thing where she now has the power because he is sort of, you know, controlling things a little bit when they were on Earth together. So I did like that joke. That was pretty funny. And there's also actually a couple minutes before that, there's a joke where they're just talking about, you know, when she'll join in him all those like years later. And there's something like she says 40 years or maybe 30 if I don't eat well, if I don't take care of myself. And so then she says, well, I had ice cream for breakfast or something. And he's like, oh, don't talk dirty. So, yeah, the comedy's really on point. It's very funny. You can see that Greg Daniels is a really talented comedy writer. And as it is, it's working well within the confines of this sci-fi show that's exploring different ideas. And I think, yeah, the hope is that we all can engage with the characters and that it'll really open up and do some interesting things. But Nora's a likable character so far. I feel that there was a little bit of comedy with her and like a guy who was trying to hit on her at work, who she put in the friend zone basically. But she's definitely a solid introduction, and obviously his character was Nathan. That is, was sort of funny and kind of believable in a sleazy sort of way, and but whether we warm to him, like, because obviously as this goes on, particularly if they go with like the romance with him and Nora, which is definitely what they're suggesting at the moment, then I think that stuff has to work. We have to be won over by him rather than just like an entertaining sleazy character. I think we actually have to start liking him a bit more on a human level. So, but good first episode. Mostly, I thought there's just one or two things that may be moving forward, but at the moment, I'm really enjoying it. I thought it was a strong episode. As I said, the comedy stuff was really strong, and then there was some solid ideas and world building around that. So we'll see where it goes to, but I think there's definitely good potential here, and I think just having Greg Daniels and like his surreal sort of humour and applying it to like a sci-fi concept, I think can be potentially a really good sort of mix, and it could give it a different sensibility than it might otherwise have. But good start anyway. So that's my review of the first episode of Upload, and it's fair to say I'm going to keep with it. I'm going to return soon for episode 2. But please let me know if you've watched the opening episode, what you thought about it. You can like and subscribe if you want this content to keep coming. You can also contact me on Twitter. I'll put the link in the description. And yeah, ask me any questions, make any comment on the content. Just a couple of things I've been doing in also thinking of other sci-fi shows. I've been doing Devs, the Alex Garland sci-fi show on FX and Hulu. So I've just done episode 5 of that, so I'm going to keep going with that. That's like a limited series. So that's another sci-fi show, but very different to that. So you can find the first 5 episodes of that reviewed on the channel. But this has been my review of Upload, episode 1 of season 1, and I'll be back with more soon. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.